actions gon' make them yours. What we run is a limit, now your hands on the torch. Take it easy like Sundays on the porch. You move on the brand with no award toys. This culture meets the art, podcast with the heart. And essence of the growth, the powers in the people. Without you, we ain't equal. What we lack is ego. We're bad now, so here we go. Run the show like Arsenio. Episodic, our rituals, minds change the visual. Representation of our nation and its differences. Some explanation of our uniqueness and innocence. Mass media's intention is to desensitize. We raise the wise, and knowledge is power. Without it, we turn coward and proud of a known product. Like we could take it with us. I wish the greats were still alive and here with us, but it is what it is. We're left here to share a gift, and that's precisely what we'll do with it. Shape shift and fluidly, we can pass this test. And
what is going on, everyone? Welcome to, in my opinion, the livest media, tech, and pop culture show in the land, or live stream at least. This is MediaScope, all things media, tech, and pop culture. And you might maybe say to yourself, today is Monday. Why are you on? Because we have a special guest, and I am super excited. I did not want to make you wait until Wednesday. If you're just joining me for the first time, it's me. My name is Tachi, media professor, filmmaker, media content producer, also a journalist. We are here usually every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but today is Monday, and we're here at 5 p.m., well, 5:05-ish p.m. ET, but these are the normal details if you want to watch on Wednesday, although we won't be here this Wednesday since we have this great show. I want to say hello to everybody who is watching us on Facebook Live. If you're watching us on YouTube, what it do? If you're here on Twitch, welcome Twitchers. Twitch family. If you are here on LinkedIn, it is good to see you. If you have the good pleasure of listening to us on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Gospel 107.1 FM in Nassau, Bahamas, and the rest of the Caribbean, I wish you a multitude of blessings. And of course, we have our Indie Soup media family as well that is watching over on our Roku app and on indiesoupmedia.tv. Woo! We are in a lot of places, but I am super happy, and we're not going to take too long. I just want to say hello first to some people. G is here, GR Houston. Jack, hello, G. She says afternoon to all. And also D Carpio, how are you, D? It is great to see you. She says hello, Tachi, and guessing. You'll get to see the guest in just a few. Also, let's see who is over on the Instagram side. Zoila is here. Hey, Zoila. Frazier, what's up, Frazier? How are you? Miss Elise, it is good to see you. Also, Alicia B. What's up, Alicia B? Hannah Boyd Miller and 2 Diva for You have also joined, and I know more people are going to join the fold in a few. So, without any further ado, I would like to introduce our guest to you. Well, I'm actually going to have him introduce himself, and then we'll have some great conversation. So how about this? We'll do the introduction, and we'll be back right after this. Mr. Sedberry, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I am fantastic. It is so good to have you here. First of all, thank you so much for saying yes to the interview request.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad to be on here, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you. See, we're family now because you're calling me Doc, so thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So why don't we start a little bit with who you are, and then we'll get into the meat of our conversation. But tell everyone who you are.
My name is, well, everybody calls me White George, but I'm a 52-year-old guy from Arkansas. I'm a former racist, drug addict, ex-con, and convicted felon that came to my senses kind of late in life and basically saw things that I did not like, couldn't explain, and couldn't stay silent about any longer, and fell in love with HBCUs along the way. And I kind of now found my why in life.
So this is your why. So let's go back and let's talk about how you came to realize that you were racist. Because I think sometimes people, they behave in such ways that they don't realize that it is what it is. When did you say, wow, I'm racist?
Oh, I knew I was racist. There was
really?
never... I knew exactly what racism was. I'm not dumb or ignorant. I didn't know how to get away from it, though. I didn't know exactly. If you've only thought that way one way your whole life, and you've lived in an echo chamber of people who reinforce it, you don't know a path out of it, or I didn't know I could think a different way. And nobody told me that you can't believe in God, like truly believe in God, and be racist at the same time. No one ever taught me that. I'd like to think that would have sped things up for me, but no, I always knew. I just got tired of being an a-hole, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where did that come from, though? Because these behaviors are learned; they're not innate. Where did that come from?
People who raised me, people who raised them. I was just surrounded by it in a small town in Arkansas. I grew up and racism for us wasn't a violent. It wasn't anything like that. It was more of, I'm better than you and I don't have to be accountable. Like if I haven't mowed my yard in 6 months and I have a dozen vehicles up on cinder blocks in my yard, Doc, and your family moves in my neighborhood, well, I'm going to blame you for my lowered property values instead of accepting the fact I'm white trash. And so it was a way of not being accountable. It's a way of looking down on other people to make ourselves feel better because we're insecure. We've got a flaw within ourselves that we can look down like that. That's kind of what racism looked like for me.
Interesting. And let me put this out there for those of you that are just joining. Welcome. Our guest today is GW Sedberry Jr. He is doing an amazing thing. He is walking across the country from New York to California to raise awareness and money for HBCUs. And we're right now going into the going back into the weeds of who he is and how he came to this realization. But I urge you, if you have questions, please ask questions. We're here for that, definitely. Let me make sure, let me say hello to the food plane. I know he is going, if anybody has questions, it's going to be DS. So the food plane will definitely have. And GR says, we can choose to change and create a new narrative. Why did you need to create a new narrative? It would have been easy for you to remain the way you were. And I know you said you got tired, but it's difficult to be one of a few when everybody else around you is thinking the same way. What was the catalyst that said, all right, I'm tired of this, but why are you tired of this?
I think, I often go back to, basically, I got a splinter in my finger in 2001. It led to cellulitis. I almost lost my arm. I have a massive scar. And I got addicted to pain pills, like heavily addicted. That was a 10-year downward spiral. That led me to becoming a very accomplished jewelry thief. I'm not proud of that, and I created victims in the world because of stealing to feed my addiction. And I was caught and sentenced to 13 years in prison my first time. They made an example out of me. And I was kind of bitter and upset about that. But it wasn't until I landed into a jail cell and I looked at those four walls and I realized God had just saved my life. He had just saved me from myself. And not knowing at the time that catalyst was starting to do something to me, because I started having cellmates of all different cultures and communities. And we had conversations about racism and about being Black in America. And this went on for a few years. I had hundreds of conversations while I was incarcerated. And it didn't really hit me until I got out. And then all these stories I started to see in the world, I started to see America and the world very, very different than I was told. And it got to the point I couldn't stay silent any longer.
Do you think that your story, and this is really the case for a lot of people who are racist and call themselves racist, that they just haven't had something happen that they can't behave like this anymore?
As long as they can get away with not being accountable for their actions, that being able to look down and put down and make fun of other people because of their own insecurities that they're projecting. And let's be clear about this. Racism is a form of mental cancer. And a lot of it is projecting our own character flaws and insecurities onto a different race or color or community. Mm-hmm. It's simply that. And, I think some people are so comfortable with that. They're so scared of change because coming out of the darkness of racism is a battle. It's work. Yeah. It is not that you flip. It'll go on the rest of my life. And I still deal with subconscious bias, but I'm aware of it because, let's face it, I'm racist in traffic. I'm racist against Chevy diesel pickups, against dump trucks, against Toyota Priuses. We're all racist in traffic. But being serious, it's a process, and you have to forgive yourself and you have to admit you're flawed. And a lot of people don't want to do that.
Absolutely. Was it a challenge, or let me go back and ask, were there any actions that you took that you felt you really needed to repent and apologize for while you were in this racism state of mind?
No, and I don't. Please forgive me. I'm gonna try to say this as best I can, coming from my perspective.
Absolutely.
You hear the old trope. I have black friends. I mean, like I've had employees, a lot of black men and women I've been close to in my life. Not that qualifies me, but I had a cellmate in prison. My first one, his name is Larry, and I think he did more to help me understand my own racism than anybody. Because one day we were locked down 23-1, and he asked me, he goes, "Are you racist?" I go, "Yeah, kinda." He goes, "Can I ask you some questions about it?" "Yeah, okay. Can I ask you some questions about being black?" He said, "Yeah." And for 2 weeks we talked nonstop. And he explained to me, he goes, "Your grandmother doesn't dislike me at all. She probably loved me, but your grandmother and grandfather fear what they don't understand. They don't understand black culture. They've never tried to understand it. And therefore they fear what they don't understand. It's that simple." And a light bulb went off in my head.
So this is interesting. So someone actually brought to the attention through examples, etc., their life experiences. So you had the pleasure of and the good fortune of being able to have somebody to teach you. But I'll ask you this: is it the job of the people who racism is being hurled against? Is it the job for them to correct this?
No, of course not. But
Right.
if you hadn't taken that time and energy and love to show me that mercy and grace, I'm not sure I'd be here where I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, I often say white America picked the fight, and we don't like the fight that's coming our way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. And if you don't get on the right side of this fight, you're going to get crushed at some point. I mean, Black America has over a $1.3 trillion economy in it. And just speaking economically, that's the 17th largest economy in the world. And it's growing, and it's going to keep growing. And so, being pragmatic, racism is the greatest Ponzi scheme ever invented. You have to keep recruiting new members to keep it alive, right? It's like Amway or anything. If you don't keep recruiting people to buy the products, it goes away, it crumbles. So until we stop recruiting, I don't know how we stop it exactly.
Interesting. Then that's an interesting way that you put it, to stop recruiting, but it's profitable.
Okay.
It's profitable.
And I'm gonna say this too, and not to minimize racism,
Right.
but this country has used so many things to divide us: gender, whether you're gay or straight, cultures. They've used everything, and racism is probably the most powerful one and one we know best. But one of the things I think our faults about racism is that racists never talk about what it's like to be racist. Like you and Black America, Hispanic, none of them would know what it's like for somebody to be racist towards them. We all scream and shout, but racists don't speak up. You ever notice that?
It's true.
I might be the first person to admit openly I used to be racist to you and be having a frank conversation with you too. I don't know if that's happened to you before.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. It's interesting because I think that as people of color, you're used to the regular narrative and people not coming out to say, this is who I am. And even if you do, there's no action to try and correct it. So I think this is very interesting that you are now taking a course of action to try and correct it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. First of all, I'm giddy and so excited that you are here. I found out, ladies and gentlemen, all about him via social media. I don't know how I found you, but I did, and I'm glad I did. And I reached out, and he so graciously accepted my invitation to come on MediaScope. And part of that is because social media has been instrumental to this journey to correct the way you thought before. And so we're going to get into that in a minute. I just want to say hello to everybody. If you are just joining, welcome to the fold. This is a special edition on a special day of MediaScope, all things media, tech, and pop culture. Today, we are talking to GW Sedberry, who is as he says, a former racist, but more importantly, he is on the path to raise awareness and money for HBCUs by walking across the country from New York to California, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But guess what? We actually had, and this is the lovely gentleman here, we actually have some questions for him. And I knew, DS, you never disappoint. He's got some questions for you. He says, and he has some things he says, I so enjoy that there are different cultures, colors, sounds, and flavors in the world. How boring would it be if we did not? So absolutely. He also says, applause for coming out of that mindset. G says that part, it's the projection of insecurities. Absolutely. So the food plane asks you this: were there any fears you had going into the walk? And what was your biggest challenge?
Fear of the unknown is probably one of the, but I also thrive. It's kind of a juxtaposition. I thrive on that fear of unknown and being uncomfortable, but it's scary because it's dangerous out here. I'm doing this completely on my own. Funding, like I have a GoFundMe, and it's, I'm trying to hold all this together, but I've learned that God provides every step of the way, whether I'm insecure or nervous. God just seems to keep doing that. But I'm also scared of my body holding up. Like I have a bike with me in case my knees give out or go bad. I can bike some of the miles, but it's not the walk. I think it's more the fear of sacrificing everything to accomplish a goal bigger than myself. That's probably the biggest fear I have. And if you want to know what the biggest challenges are every day, is going to the bathroom. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of places to go when you're out walking randomly.
So this is interesting because now, because you're doing this calls our infrastructure in this country into question as well. The fact that there are not a lot of public restrooms, right? I'm sure that not all the roads are going to be great. Everything is not going to be necessarily walkable. So where are you now? You left, was it last week you left New York?
2 weeks ago, yesterday.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I started at the Apollo Theater because I spoke on stage at the Apollo last September and gave a lecture about HBCUs and didn't get booed off the stage. I actually got about a half a standing ovation. That night changed my life too. But so I started the walk there to kind of commemorate that. And I'm in, I think, somewhere east of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've walked 139 miles so far in 15 days, which is not as much as I want, but my body's getting used to it. I walked 12 miles today.
Wow, 12 miles. And so how are you feeling right now?
Here's the thing. When I start walking, I mean, like today, I think I walked over 4 hours and my knees hurt. I mean, I'm in pain, but it's a mental deal, right? When I'm walking, it's when I stop, that's when it gets rough. If I stop moving, my joint seize up and then it's like, ugh. So yeah, as long as I'm moving, I'm good.
I can imagine it is quite a physical toll, but what about the mental toll? The thoughts that you have? What is it like walking with yourself day in and day out during this journey?
Let me just say, I have yet to listen to music once. I've at 159 miles. I have not listened to a single song. I keep telling myself I will, but I get lost in my thoughts or I'm having conversations with people, and I enjoy the alone time because overcoming my own insecurities and fears, and that's important to me. That's part of this. I mean, I had PTSD from several things that have happened to me in my life. I got out of a relationship a couple of months ago. Like, I think God has given me this time as like the ultimate healing process.
And has it been healing thus far?
Yeah, it is, because I mean, having been incarcerated for 3 years, I don't know what freedom is to you. Freedom to me now is I wake up every day going, how far do I want to walk? Which way do I want to go? Who do I want to talk to, if anybody? Like, my life is mine, and I'm on parole until July 27th, but I am walking across the country doing whatever it is I feel called to do. I may be living on very meager, a lot of tuna fish, but at the same time, I feel like my cup runneth over. I don't know a better way to define freedom.
Excellently said. And freedom means different things to different people, but I'm sure from the perspective of you, from your perspective, it really means something different. And I'm sure it's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Now, for those of you on Instagram, of course, as per usual, Instagram is stuck. So if you have a question or something you want to put in, please put it in. I have another device up now so that we could get these questions going. But before Instagram stuck, Trish says this: there is racism in all races. If you work with a culture of mixed races, you hear it. Bestie says, I'm experiencing racism as we speak at the reservoir by my home because I live in a beautiful area and people are watching me as I mind my business. Absolutely. That's there too. Celeste says the first is to always admit that you have a problem or that you are the problem. Absolutely. Trish also says, learn to break old patterns in yourself. Welcome, Joni Red Butterfly. Daryl is here. Almi Robinson is here, and Lashandra is driving but can't interact. Please, yeah, don't interact, but we're happy to have you here. Absolutely. We are here with GW Sedberry. What do you like to be called? I'm just calling you. Is GW fine? Is
George. My close friends call me GW. That's why.
Okay.
But yeah, it's either one's good.
George. Okay.
All
right.
right. Because I'm a junior. My dad and I have the same name, same birthday. So that's why I had initials.
Makes sense. It makes sense. All right. So George is here with us and he is explaining quite a bit. Please make sure if you have any questions that you put them there. This is a great time to do this. All right. So Food Plane says this: you can be in prison and be free, and you can be free and be in prison. Interesting. Interesting. And he has a question for you. Did your faith play a part in your change of mindset?
It is the biggest driver in my desire to be a better human being. I have probably the best relationship with my creator, my Father in heaven, as I've ever had in my life. I pray more than I've ever prayed. I enjoy the act of praying. I enjoy going to the Bible for my daily shot of energy. I enjoy giving of myself to other people. Like prison taught me empathy. And it's hard to explain. Like, I see random people, somebody cuss me off in traffic and I pray for them. I used to give them the finger and cuss them out. Yeah, my faith did everything. Without my faith, I wouldn't be here.
Why HBCUs? What was it about HBCUs that said, this is what I want to do? Well, first of all, let's clarify. Did you attend an HBCU?
No, but I grew up around 4 of them in Little Rock. We always knew them as the black colleges, right?
Okay.
But during the Cosby Show, that's when we started learning about HBCUs. Now, keep in mind, my father helped instill a lot of my racism in me, right?
Okay.
But when the Cosby Show came on, we didn't talk until it was commercial. He loved the Cosby Show. Learned about Morehouse and Spelman and the different sweaters he wore, because we couldn't watch Good Times and What's Happening growing up. You know what I mean? I love Rerun. If my dad knew, he wouldn't let us. But come the Cosby Show, oh, no, we're watching the Cosby Show.
So what was it about the Cosby Show that was acceptable as opposed to the other black shows you mentioned?
I don't know. I can't explain it. But let me say this, though. My dad died when I was 39 of brain cancer. And it wasn't until after his death that even friends of mine who happened to be blacks goes, your dad's the least racist white dude I ever knew. And I'm like, what? He changed before my eyes. I just couldn't see it because I was stuck in my own mindset. Like, I didn't realize. And now, hindsight being 2020 and conversations I've had with people, I want to be like my dad. I know my dad would be so incredibly proud of me. Like, I have no doubt he'd be so proud of me. My other parent, on the other hand, not so much. Not when you.
Wow. When you said he changed before your eyes, what was the indication of the change? What exactly do you mean?
One of the, I didn't realize at the time I was dating a girl that had biracial kids, and she had a daughter who was probably 14 or 15 at the time, before I got locked up. And every Monday night, my ex would fix this big home dinner for my dad. He would come over because, he had been through brain surgeries and stuff. And her daughter and my dad would sit on the couch, like a teenage black girl, and my dad, a 60-something-year-old grizzly bear of a white guy, Vietnam veteran. And those two were just, and he come over at 7 for dinner, and then he got to be in 6:30 and 6 and 5:30. And I was like, Dad, let her get home from school and kind of decompress before you come over here and start hanging out. But, I watched that just genuine affection he had for her and her for him. And I kind of started seeing my dad in a different light, but it wasn't until after he was gone that I started seeing everything.
Interesting.
I talked, he didn't.
Hmm. Hmm. So it's really as if it supersedes people when it feels as if when you see someone that is an example that really decimates everything that you thought, it starts to give you a change of heart and change your mind. Is this what you found, especially with the young man that you met in prison who started to change your mind?
Um, yeah, I didn't know my mind was changing at the time. I wasn't
Okay.
open to learning. I didn't know it was changing, but I got to ask questions about Black culture, right? And one of the questions I'd asked was about domestic violence. It's something I wanted to know because of the stereotypes, right? I'm not saying facts, but stereotypes. And stereotypes is a very important part of this conversation. But his name was Larry, and Larry told me, he goes, I watched my granddad hit my grandmother. I watched my uncles hit my aunties. I've seen my dad hit my mom, my stepdad, her boyfriend. You know, he goes, I've just seen this in my family and other families. He goes, I said I would never do it. Then one day I got really mad and I did it. And I think that's the part where it crystallized for me that it was, every bit of him didn't want to do it, but it was so normalized, just like there's things that are screwed up in the white community that's normalized. It's no different. But I never heard it from that perspective and how he saw it. And then I asked about rap music and people's obsession with what to me wasn't reality. And when he broke it down, I was like, I just never knew. I just never had that perspective. And it just started to open my eyes.
Mm. Food Plane has this to ask. In terms of how faith changed your mindset, how specifically did it change your mindset?
You cannot be a Christian and be racist at the same time. They cannot coexist. You are being a pseudo Christian or a fake Christian if you say you love and believe in God and you're racist, because they contradict each other. That's the number one thing. And second, I can't be forgiven by God until I learn to forgive myself and other people. And forgiving myself was probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do, because there's no book on how to forgive yourself. It's so that, and when God said, serve the least among us, least does not mean the weakest by far. But I started taking the least among us as some of the cultures and communities that society has treated the worst. That's how I interpret the least. And God said, serve the least. And that's what I want to do.
Absolutely. So Lee says exactly. Hey, Jesus Black Man is here and says, wow, yes, it does. Also, Kimmy Kim is here and she loves this, as we can see. Food Plane also loves your answer. Thank you so much for answering that. Let me take a minute to say, hey, what's up to everyone? This gentleman over here is George W. Sedberry Jr. He is walking across the U.S. from New York to California to spread awareness of HBCUs and raise some funding for HBCUs, which is wonderful. And we are on the question, why HBCUs? And so you said you grew up with the Black colleges around you, but off of that, why Black colleges? Was it someone that you met that went to an HBCU that had a profound effect?
Nothing like that at all. I love Black American history and I'm a storyteller, and that's kind of how I built my platform. I've got a good one I'm launching tonight, a really, really good one. And I'll just about how a Black man ruined more beautiful Saturday afternoons for white people than anybody else in history. And he's the inventor of the golf team. But I started doing these stories, and one of the common thread I saw was so many attended historically Black colleges and universities. I just kept seeing this over and over. And I'm like, there's something here. I grew up around them. So I spent probably 2 months researching them. I mean, I read everything I could. I'm watching content on it. And I made a video about it. And it went viral last year, almost a year exactly. And I looked at my ex at the time and I said, do you want to go see some campuses? Like, this was on a Thursday of Memorial Day weekend last year. I literally just like, do you want to go? And she said, sure. So we loaded up and we went to Central State, Wilberforce, Kentucky State, and Simmons College of Kentucky. School wasn't in session. I read, studied the campuses. I walked the campuses. I got the energy, and I just started making like mini documentaries or virtual tours of the campuses. And something about being on those campuses, that energy, I can feel it. And I feel like prison heightened my senses big time. Like, I can sense evil more than most people. I can be around somebody and know that they're evil, and I can feel it, but I can also feel beauty and majesty and grace. And something about these campuses, I feel like a kinship to. I can't explain it. But I knew after those 4 campuses, I knew what I was going to do. Like, I just knew.
And I know what you're talking about. I attended an HBCU for both of my graduate degrees, and there is a majesty. There is something there. I went to Howard, and there's something there as you walk across the campus. Then you realize that the ancestors, walked across that campus. That you're walking the same grounds of people who did amazing things. There's something there. So that's probably what you were feeling, the ancestors. That's definitely what you were feeling.
Do you know where else I felt them at before?
Where?
Montgomery, Alabama. I got up to go pray. It was early on a Sunday morning, like 6 o'clock. And I remember getting up and I walked from my hotel down to the water and I went through a tunnel. And I remember walking through that tunnel and I felt this pain in my chest. I felt nauseous. I'm like, something's not right. And I went out to the water, and that's where the Montgomery brawl happened. I'm looking at the ship and it hit me. And then I realized that tunnel is what they used to march enslaved Americans up to warehouse them to be sold at auction. And I could feel that pain and just hurt. And when I looked at the water in the river, and I realized there is no telling how many bodies are in that water that have been pushed off, jumped off, drowned, buried over the hundreds of years in that river. And it got me. I sat there in tears praying. Like I couldn't shake that just weight of the pain. And so I had my girl I was with at the time walk down there with me the next morning, and she walked through that tunnel once, and she said, please don't make me go back to that tunnel. And I didn't tell her anything about the tunnel. So you can feel both the good and the bad and the negative and the just pain also.
Absolutely. Food Plane had something else. And no, you are not getting ahead of the show. We are here for you. So, of course, I have questions, but I'm also very interested and even more interested in the audience asking questions. So he asks this: what would you say to someone who may be watching now who is racist?
Well, it's real simple. The weight of the hate is going to consume your soul. It is literally going to cannibalize your soul. Second, by being racist, you're not being accountable to yourself. And that's going to hurt you way more than you realize. You're going to go through life never accepting things, blaming other people, thinking you're superior in some way when you're not. And eventually that catches up to you. It's going to catch up to you in your relationships with your partner. I don't care who it is. If you're not true to yourself, it's going to deteriorate things around you. And I know people that refuse to give up on racism. One person in particular, and I say this because he's a good man. He's a friend of mine's father, and I adore the guy, but he won't let go of what he calls his racism because he was jumped and savagely beaten by 3 black guys when he was a teenager. And while I understand the trauma of that has nothing to do with being racist, but I can't get him to understand that he admits to. But I think over this time, it's working on him slowly because he watches my videos.
So if nothing else, sorry, go ahead.
No, it just tells me that for somebody who wants to hold on to racism, but they're watching Black American history videos, there's obviously something there. So
absolutely. And many people that have these views and this ideology, the racist ideology, you're hanging on by a thread, because if you really challenge them on some of these things that they think are facts, there's usually silence. There's usually fumbling to make excuses for things that, can easily be discredited. But sometimes people need to hold on to these feelings and these thoughts or this ideology for whatever reason. So thank you definitely for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit more about HBCUs as we continue to take the audience's questions. So the first HBCU graduation you attended was this past Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, and it was where?
Cheney University, the first HBCU, founded in 1837.
Wonderful. What was that experience like for you?
It was fantastic. I mean, like, no offense, but somebody reached out to me and said Howard and Tuskegee's graduations do not have near that much high energy. That was a well executed graduation. The people were, it was like a party. These kids earned their degrees. And the campus is so beautiful. Like, I can't begin to describe how beautiful Cheney is. It's like a throwback in time that hasn't been corrupted by society. It's almost like a world unto itself. I just really love the experience of the people.
And, the interesting thing about being a student at an HBCU is that even though you know whatever goes on in the outside world goes on, you know that the faculty, staff, students have your back. You can be a student and not be a Black student. And I had the experience of going to a PWI undergrad and then did my graduate work at an HBCU. And for the first time, I wasn't a Black student. I was just a student, which I think is what everybody wants. I just want to be a student. Can I just be? And so it's amazing. And then to get to the point of graduation, I'm sure it must have been an unforgettable experience. Now, is that the only HBCU commencement you've been to thus far?
So far. So far, I got a lot more campuses, homecomings, graduations. Like, I have a plan, and you can ask me later what I'll do after this. What's my, at the end of the conversation. I know that question's, I'll kind of explain to you then, but yeah, there's a lot more I want to see because I saw 120 something young men and women just with promise in their eyes, like hope and this excitement. They're going on to careers or jobs or grad school. Like, you can feel the energy. And for some of these families, it was the first time that they'd ever had a college graduate in the family. I met somebody else who had 26 family members attend Cheney. Like, words can't really describe it until you're there and you're in the middle of it and experiencing it, but it's just magical.
Let's take some more comment. And it is pure magic. And of course, I think that Howard's graduation is pretty lit, but I understand. I'll give it to you, Cheney, but all love, all HBCU love. Let's go to some questions over on YouTube. G asks, are there any family members or friends who have joined you on this journey?
I've had some help support me, in little ways, financially and other things. But as far as doing this, no, but it's also opened up a lot of conversations with friends that I know still harbor racist ideology. And I also discovered tone deaf. Like, to me, it was racist or not racist. I didn't realize there's that whole gray area of tone deaf people. And I haven't grown up racist. I know the secret handshake. I speak the code. I still have the handbook. Like, you're not going to be a closet racist on me and me not know it. It's just not going to happen. But the tone deaf people, it's almost like willful ignorance. And I think I have a greater chance of reaching those people than I do people that are still committed to being really racist. Because I think the tone deaf people can be saved. I don't think it's that hard to change their perspective.
That's good. It would be nice to think that everybody can be saved, but you have to work with, some people, as I like to say, you have to leave at the base of the mountain as you climb. They will be baggage that will weigh you down. And speaking of which, how hard is it, even though you are reformed, how hard is it not to fall back into old patterns?
Not hard at all.
Okay.
That seeing that behavior in other people disgusts me. Like, when you were a certain way, and like, I've never cheated on a girl ever in my life, but I know people who have cheated and feel bad about it, and they resent so bad other men who cheat, even though they had cheated once. Like, they identify that behavior, and so I see it. There's no part of that game that I want. It didn't benefit me in any way, any tangible way. It just messed me up. No, it's like a bad drug. I don't want to go back to it.
Good to hear. Let's take some comments over here on Instagram. And Levox says there's no place for racism, period. I agree. LaShandra says, I'm so sick of racism. It's hindering America's success. Absolutely. Absolutely. Princess Seven Closet is here. Hello. She says hello to all of us. And Salid says, the tone deaf people are fighting the truth. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, respect, too.
Say that again.
It's not only a lack of respect. I've learned it's one thing to show Black America respect or the culture. It's another to learn how to show respect, because they are not one and the same. When somebody says, I don't see color, right? That's a tone deaf person. I absolutely see color. Doc, to see your color tells me your heritage and culture. It doesn't tell me your character. It doesn't tell me your education, right? It tells me a community you most likely came from. And that's maybe a bond or a conversation we can have. That's really all the skin tone tells us, because like fingerprints, right? No two fingerprints are alike. No two humans on earth have the same degrees of melanin in them. Nobody has the exact same skin shade.
I'm a little suspicious of people that I don't see color. I do. Everybody does. That's a little. It's a way of, in a way, trying to be PC saying that, but it's the worst type of thing. You should, because that's discounting somebody's, as you said, heritage, their ethnic background, and I want to respect that. So absolutely, I see color. Let's take some more. Kimmy Kim attended an HBCU. Tell us which one you attended. You know, I attended Howard, so I'm gonna cape for Howard at all times. But let me know if you all attended an HBCU. Please put in the chat where you went. I would love to know. We would love to know. Also, Mark Ward is here, one of my favorites. He says, even the most educated of us, white people, view the world through a racist lens. It is often unconscious and without malice, deeply embedded and systematic. Cannot get beyond what we refuse to acknowledge.
Nailed it.
Absolutely. Mark always nails it. He's just this deep thinker whom I really respect. DiCarpio says, awesome convo. She loves it. And Food Plane, thank you for this, says this is one of the if not the most important shows here on MediaScope. Thanks to both of you. Thank you so much. DiCarpio said, I had 3 uncles who went to prison and heard some stories from them, but George is really incredible.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Tiger Matthew is here. Hello, welcome. Tara is here. Welcome. Thank you so much. Jay Walton Photography for joining us. Johnny, After Dark with Johnny Ray. How are you, Johnny Ray? It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so I have a challenge for you if you are up for it. I've seen you do this on your social media, and then we'll talk about the role social media has in all of this for you. But how many HBCUs can you name? I've seen you do this. How many can you name?
You want me to try it? Can you give me 60 seconds?
I would love for you to try. Yeah, let's put 60 seconds on the clock. Right. Hold on.
Off guard here. All right, I can do this.
Okay, you can do it. And I'm even giving you time because I need to open the clock app. So here we go. Where are you, clock app? Do I not have it? Here we are. All right, so we're going to go to the timer. We're going to go to 60 seconds. And go.
UAPB, Arkansas Baptist, Philander Smith, Shorter College, Tougaloo, Jackson State, Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State, Grambling, Southern, Xavier, Dillard, Prairie View A&M, Paul Quinn College, Wiley College, Houston Tillotson. I feel like I'm missing somebody else in Texas. Florida FAMU, Florida Memorial, Edward Waters, Bethune-Cookman, Savannah State, Albany State, Fort Valley State, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Morris Brown, Payne College. Let's see, go to North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, Bennett College, Benedict College, Winston-Salem State, Johnson C. Smith, University of D.C., Maryland Eastern Shores, Howard University, Hampton, Norfolk State, Virginia Union, Virginia State. I'm missing some people. It's going to make them mad. City of Hampton's got my Howards. Tuskegee. I don't forget Tuskegee. Alabama State, Alabama A&M. St. Augustine's.
And time. I don't know who was keeping count. I was trying, but I was also timing this. But I think you got like quite a few in there. And I saw that you went regionally. How hard was that for you to start to get to know and understand HBCUs so that you can rattle them off like that?
I have a near eidetic memory. You know what that is? I learned to speed read as a child, and I could still read 1,300 words a minute. And because I have a near eidetic memory, if I take it in and absorb something, I can just remember it. So that hurt me learning how to learn, because I could study and take a test and regurgitate it. All my stories, I don't use a script. I do from memory. So as I've learned these schools, it just keeps adding to the list in my brain.
Interesting. Okay, Kimmy Kim said she went to Johnson C. Smith in North Carolina, and her 2 sons attended Cheney. So wonderful. G said she lost count, but he did far better than me and far better than I would have as well. He said you forgot Hillman. Whether it's fake or not, we love Hillman.
I forgot Hillman too. too. I forget Stillman and Meharry every time, and I have friends who get upset with me every time I forget it. So
Stillman and Meharry, of course, we've got Harris Stowe. We've got over in the D.C. area, Coppin, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, Morgan State University. There's so many. There's so many. So no, there's no love lost. We love all of you. He was under pressure. So
I want to tell you something, though. I'm going to start doing the series. I'm going to start doing it more and more with different people. I've got an HBCU president who wants to come on live and do it with me.
Wonderful.
But I'm also going to start doing a financial component to this. I'm starting off with, I'm going to ask one question, has 107 answers, and you can earn up to $107.60. I'm going to give you $1 for every school you can name off. And I'm going to start this because I'm going to try to get sponsors to come in. And I'd like to up it to $5 or $10 where somebody has a chance to win up to $1,000 if they name as many as they can in 60 seconds. So that's something I'm working on now to kind of make it fun and engaging.
That's amazing. So let's get on that. Let's see, sponsors, if you're watching, let's get this, because I think this is absolutely amazing. So I have more questions, obviously. We have a little bit of time left. So, but what is your goal with this?
I got a couple things. As far as like near future, when I cross the country, I want to attend homecomings, obviously, when my walk is over, because I love HBCU homecomings. And yes, there's a bunch of them. I got to go to a ton. I've only been to 3. But when I'm done with that, I want to get an RV, like a toy hauler RV trailer, convert the rear to a podcast studio, because I'd like to go around the country interviewing people I find interesting. But I'd like to focus on civil rights veterans, men and women you've never heard of, because I'm afraid if we don't record these stories, they're going to be lost to history, and their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids will never know what their life was like. And I'm also scared that these stories will be written out of history, and we'll start to gloss over and forget about what civil rights meant to this country. Because I benefited, white people benefited immensely from the Civil Rights Act. But if we don't capture these stories of these unknown people, then history can be rewritten and we can do nothing about it. So that's the point of the podcast. But I want to leverage these connections, because I realized I can speak in some rooms that Black Americans cannot, and I can speak in rooms that a lot of white Americans cannot. And I'd like to leverage this because for my legacy, because I have no kids, I would like to raise enough money in perpetuity to fund 1,000 students' tuition at HBCUs, a full ride. Now that may be, let's call it 50 to 100 grand. So that's about 50 to 100 million dollars, which that money exists. But the reason why is that the difference between a college education or degree and a high school diploma on average is about $1 million in lifetime earning. So if we can take 1,000 students who might not otherwise get to go to college, get their degrees and increase their lifetime earnings, this has helped to create $1 billion in generational wealth in 1,000 HBCU students. I'd like to die broke, because I would like to do everything I can to funnel in that this is set in place. That's my goal.
Excellent. So why is generating this generational wealth, why is that important?
Because so much has been taken from Black America and other minority communities. So much has been stripped, robbed, pillaged. And I don't know, I can't solve the world's problems. This is just one small area that I think I can make a difference. And these are kids I'll never meet, never know. And I just want to know that they got the best shot they could at making the best they could.
Fantastic. So what are some other initiatives you have for this? We know you're doing the walk, but how are you going to do this? How are you going to fund these 1,000 students and the building of generational wealth? If you know.
I kind of, I have a Rolodex for most people would die for now. Like Brett Favre was liked and commented a video of mine, the NFL quarterback, yesterday. My reach and Rolodex has gotten pretty prolific, and I want to be able to leverage those connections, because I believe there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of nonprofits and foundations in my community that would have no problem donating or supporting this. They just don't know how to enter into it, because it's a minefield for a lot of white companies to enter into Black America. We know this. It shouldn't be that scary, but it is. But if I can keep building my brand and these relationships, and I can leverage this credibility I've got, I can introduce the two worlds together. Because this money exists. Don't kid yourself.
Oh yeah. The money is always there. It's just a question of getting people to come up off of the funding. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you, obviously, how we can help, but that's a little bit more toward the end. Let's take some more comments. Mark asked this. Have you done a TED Talk yet? If not, it might be something to consider because it's such a powerful, much needed message.
Mark, hook me up. I would love to. My first speaking engagement ever was the Apollo Theater.
Oh, that's the first time ever you spoke.
I mean, I've done small, but that's the first time I've ever had a professional speaking gig was at the Apollo in Harlem, New York. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm just, well, so has that now sparked the speaking bug in you? Did you say, I can do this? This is something I can do.
I wanted to be some type of motivational speaker in some way for a very long time. I just didn't know how to break into it. I've always been a charismatic storyteller, full of energy, but I didn't know how to harness it. It's hard to explain, but a lot of way before when I was still racist, I had dreams and visions of things I wanted to do, and I didn't know how I'd do it. And all this has just led me to understanding how I can pull this off now. I'm a pretty darn good speaker, and I've been a storyteller literally all my life. So I'm finding my natural skill, but I didn't know what story to tell. And it's useless to be a storyteller without a story. But my love of American history, especially Black American history and HBCUs, like I said, gave me my path.
Fantastic. And it's a great path to be on. We appreciate you for it. G asks, says this, capturing these stories are crucial. Rosa Parks is now just a woman who was asked to move to the back, but the why has been removed. How do we, in your opinion, how do we start to put that why back in? How do we start to infuse? Because I live in Florida. I'm sure you already know what they're trying to do with the history books here. What do we do, in your opinion?
Okay, I'm gonna give you some advice on white people, okay?
Please.
First off, you can't come at us direct. Where a lot of us are white people get offended when I say this, but we're fragile, we're insecure, because when it comes to the salad bowl of America, we're just the lettuce, we're just the fiber. Salads are horrible without carrots and radishes, tomatoes, dressing, etc. So you can't come at a white person direct because we are kind of fragile. You kind of got to come at them sideways. Just like reparations, white people will never accept that word. Change the marketing plan, call it restitution, call it a historic investment. So when you're dealing with white people, there's egos at play. And I think if we educate people in a fun and creative and clever way that makes them have aha moments where they can reach these conclusions themselves rather than being forced to agree or think this way. Reparations is something white America, as it stands now, will probably not ever swallow, will not be palatable because they feel like they're being forced to, even though it's morally correct. So I think you've got to find a way to show people that it's morally correct where they naturally want to get on board. My way of doing it is trying to find a creative, fun, and engaging way to educate people about stories, struggles that have been overcome, contributions that have made all of our lives better, because they're not being forced to have to address it. I want to suck them into a story where they're like, I didn't realize, because that's the way you can get change in a person's mind is when they decide that they want to change and see the world differently. You can't force them.
So is it on, I'll go back to what I asked before. Is it on us to people of color, Black people, to design the marketing plan to have that happen?
No, but we have to work together as a team to make it happen, because I don't, as a white person, I don't understand. I know what it is, but I don't have the emotional connection to it or the history, family history and all that. So we have to be teamed up together for me to have context and perspective. I can be the mouthpiece and I can be the bulldozer and I can be the bull in the china cabinet, but I've got to have people like you, Doc, who help steer the train, because I'll run over any barrier, but I got to have somebody up there who knows kind of what direction I need to be going. And that's why I feel it's got to be a team effort. You're never going to get white America to say, hey, we're sorry, this is what we're going to do. But I've never seen a comprehensive plan for restitution either. You can't dump $1 trillion into our economy. You can't do it, right? And then it comes to determining value and all this math. We have to go about it differently. We just need to find a way that lifts up communities, builds communities. We take some of these barriers out of the way. and how that looks, I'm not sure, but we've got to start somewhere,
I think, yeah. Yeah, I think we also have to understand and know what that looks like. And you're right. I haven't seen like a comprehensive plan for what or how it would work. And I don't know that anybody really has that in mind. But it's first going to take our community to get together and say what that looks like, and then have the help of others to enact that. And that's just my opinion of that in order for something like that to work.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
I used to be against the idea of reparations, right? I wasn't alive back then. You weren't alive back. That same old cliche that you hear, and all that's true. But I've done my family history, and nowhere can I find that we owned slaves. We were dirt poor people. But as a white person, I still benefited from slavery. We all benefited. We all want the rewards, but we don't want the accountability that comes from it. And I think that's where we're wrong. And second, there's so much has a better way to say it, in America, just because we help lift a community up and we invest in it for all the things that have been done bad in the past, we're not having food taken off our table. If anything, it's going to put more food on the table for people. I don't know why people can't grasp that.
Absolutely. Let me say hello to some folks. Grit Expectations is here. How are you? I think you have a question, but can you put it in the form of a question so that I can ask? Because I'd be happy to ask. Also, Alyssa Renee is here. How are you? Good to see you. I think I said hello to Lisa Seeley, but if not, hello, my dear. Also, Don Reed Legacy, how are you? Welcome. Camelia Flanagan she went to Texas Southern in Houston, Texas. Fantastic. Detroit, Rhea is here. How are you, Detroit? So good to see you. And Eyes on Me said that her parents met at Houston Tilston, and they graduated from there, as well as her great-grandmother and her auntie as well. Terry Maurice from Kingston, Jamaica is here. Welcome from Kingston, Jamaica. Remember, you can listen to this tomorrow on Gospel 107.1 FM in Nassau, Bahamas, and the rest of the Caribbean tomorrow. So if you happen to be in Jamaica, you can listen to this on regular radio there. Let's see, making sure I got everything. Grid Expectation says, getting to even agree on a comprehensive plan is such a journey. The fact that we are still fighting for rights is crazy. Yeah, you know what? I think that was wishful thinking and hopeful thinking on my part, because I already know that coming up with a plan, it's a huge undertaking. It's a huge undertaking. And I don't know where to start. I'm not the one to determine that. I don't know where to start. And if I don't know if, quote, leaders know where to start with this either.
It's like curing world hunger. Everybody says we can solve with Elon Musk's wealth could cure world hunger. No, it can't. We don't know how to cure world hunger. You could throw $1 trillion at it and you're still not going to cure it. We have to have processes in place, systems, and we don't have those. And I don't know. It's like the American, the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare that President Obama put through. As much as it's still kind of janky and jacked up, at least something got created. And at least if we have something, we can start to break it down and fix it and repair it and improve upon it. But we have something to work with instead of just talking about it. And Obama did something nobody else could do by creating the ACA. And I benefit directly from that because that's how I have my health insurance. So with health insurance, we could do it that way. I believe there's a way.
There is a way. It's just coming to what it is. Miss Elise says this, if I can find it. Okay. She said she doesn't hear enough people talking about how former enslavers got reparations after emancipation. Absolutely. I mean, the same thing. We can look at the case, not even just the U.S., Haiti. France got reparations after they lost Haiti. You can look at everything that's been happening throughout history, and somehow somebody managed to find a way to pay people back for these things, even though they weren't deserving of being paid back. I think we can find a way to pay folks back. There's a way.
How about Japan? We destroyed Japan in World War II. I mean, they attacked us, but then we rebuilt Japan because we knew it would be good for our own economy. Right. America always has been selfish in our interest. Right. We know this. Mm-hmm. But if we can do all these other economies, why can't we do Black American economy? It stands to reason we benefited when we go and repair and rebuild and fix. Why wouldn't it work here?
Well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get some more comments. Kimmy Kim says, we will always carry the stories like our ancestors did. Absolutely. G says, well, she said that already. Sorry, I put that up. Um, Mark says it is not the cure all, but a tiny step to watch those who we are voting into offices at all levels, school boards, city councils, Congress, etc. We have to know where they stand on these issues. Amen. Because I think too often we are concerned only with the presidential election. Meanwhile, all sorts of debauchery is going under our noses at the state level, on the school board level. Thoughts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First off, I don't care if Trump's dog was running for office. If he was willing to implement term limits, I will take whatever candidate that can push through term limits. And second, drug testing Congress. Congress has never been drug tested, but they are the lawmakers. You have to pass a UA to go to work at McDonald's. But they drink, they've done God knows what up there. And since 1994, Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich has had the power to enact drug testing randomly to Congress, but no speaker has ever done it. Now, ask yourself why. They didn't have to have the vaccine. They don't have the ACA health insurance. They have their own. It's good for thee, not for me, right? We need term limits. That's the first thing I want. I don't care who it is. Give me term limits, and then we can take the next candidate and build from there. Because this has gotten so crazy. But I agree, if we don't elect people at the micro levels, yeah, because we're not affected by the federal government that much like we are local and state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A few more comments and then we are going to let you go. Food Plane asks if you've ever thought about writing a book.
I've been asked, I'm going to write one about the walk, and then my memoirs, I've had this name for 30 years. I'm going to call it Memoirs of a Nobody, the life and times of a middle, through my blue eyes, basically. But because I've apparently had a crazy life, according to other people who've heard about it. So I've had some adventures in my life.
I can imagine. I can definitely imagine. Mark Ward says that change comes from the bottom, not the top, but we have to work this from all angles. And he also says, I worked in large organizations on inclusiveness issues when discrimination lawsuits emerged. It was usually lipstick on a pig, won't admit the guilt because of liability because they are guilty.
I have a story about that.
Let's go.
He's Jamaican, and I'm going to be very vague about this because I think there's probably still some NDA involved. But he was called a coon and the N-word in an email. All right. And he was copied on the email. Somebody made a mistake. And this is a global company. And anyway, when he filed a suit against it, the company lied their butts off. The only person who told the truth is the person who used that language, offensive language. And his reason is because he lived in another country and he said it doesn't mean the same things here as it does there, whatever. But that was the only person. That company did everything they could and lied to keep from having to do a payout. He still got paid. But yeah, because the only guy who was honest was the offender.
Wow. Grid Expectations is basically saying they don't care about the people that are the fabric of this nation. I'm not going to argue with you there at all. She actually is. Are you saying are you Puerto Rican? Put that in the thing, Grid Expectations, because I think that's part of what you're saying as well. Miss Bespoke is joining us. Strawberry 8 Girl is here, and Camellia Flanagan said, "Oh, she didn't go to Texas Southern. You just forgot to say Texas Southern. And you said Prairie View." And Classic C Gem says, "Yes, accountability is needed." D Kurt is here. Hello. Thank you all so much for being here. We are basically at time. Food Plane says, "Thank you for this stream. It was powerful." Absolutely. And usually I'm dealing with media tech and pop culture because I know how I can get as a journalist when I deal with other things. And it gets to be a lot, when we see what's happening now in the world and people will send me things, but I'm like, I'm still human. It still affects me. So I really choose to deal with media tech and pop culture issues, but I really wanted to talk to you. And this is a media tech and pop culture issue because you are spreading awareness through social media. Tell us about when you started using social to spread this message.
October of 2022, I posted my first TikTok. And I started doing science experiments, and they went viral, physics experiments. And then I told a story that I've known since childhood, because my grandparents grew up in Arkansas City, Arkansas as kids. And in town, there was a young Black American boy who went on to wonderful and amazing things. He was the first Black American to be on the Forbes 400 Richest Americans. You might have heard of him, John H. Johnson. He owned Jet and Ebony magazine and the billion-dollar Johnson Media Empire. Well, my grandparents knew him as a child. And so I knew that story all my life. And then when they integrated Central High School in Little Rock in 1957, the Little Rock Nine, Daisy Gaston Bates, got the 9 students, including Elizabeth Eckford, a Central State University alumni. They got them to go to the school because Eisenhower said they to open the school up, and Governor Orville Faubus said no and brought the National Guard out and pitted them against the 101st Airborne. We're talking jeeps and tanks with machine guns facing each other. And the 101st Airborne had to escort these students in. Now, why this is important is my great uncle was the governor's chief of staff, and my dad and his brother were a senior and sophomore at Central High, were there those days when all this was going on. So I came up with a different experience, hearing different stories.
Wow. Wow. How do you want people to help you? How can we help you in this journey?
Well, I have a GoFundMe and a Cash App. I've been kind of doing everything by the kindness of others. Like I said, I'm also starting to create sponsorships with the content I do, because my platforms, I got a few 100,000 followers across my platforms. So that's probably the easiest way. I mean, I've had people, Newark, shout out to Newark Bicycle Shop in Newark, New Jersey. They gave me an e-bike. There's been people that have helped me along the way, but usually it's in the form of donations, or people have got me hotel or bought me dinner, et cetera, because I can't work and walk every day. So that's why I moved into my pickup, to keep everything as bare minimum as I can.
And what is your GoFundMe?
I'd have to send you a link.
Okay.
Also, that's just, I guess, be easier for a lot of people.
Okay, what is it?
It's GW HITS. Looks like GW Hits, like GW HITS, and my name will pop up.
So $GWHITS.
GW.
Okay, on Cash App. I'm typing this in so people can see in case they are interested.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, how about I learn to type? Here we go. Let's add that and let's put that up. So if you are interested, is this right?
There you go. Yep, that's it.
All right. So if you are interested in helping him get across, right now, you said you're in Pennsylvania right now, correct?
Just outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And
Central State and Wilberforce.
Aha. Okay. Great. Central State and Wilberforce. So you can hit him up on his Cash App, $GWHITS. Make sure that you hit him up. And if you get me the GoFundMe, I definitely will put that up as well. If you don't mind, please.
I'll see you when we're done. I'll send it right away.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go, is there anything else that you want us to know about your story or what you're doing?
I want to say, I'm a direct beneficiary of DEI, because I'm pretty much the turd in the punch bowl everywhere I go. Sometimes I'm the only white face, and I'm very comfortable in my own skin. And people growing up racist and being open about it, I've been shown nothing but love and mercy and grace by Black America. And so I often say Black America healed my racist heart. And the irony is so delicious there, but I don't have kids. I don't have family. I'm an ex-con. I don't have rights. So you can't cancel me. And that makes me dangerous. And I sometimes think that's why I'm in the lane that I'm in, doing what I'm doing, because you can't take me down like you can other people. You can't use things to hurt me, so I can continue to speak the truth. And second, I'm going to win an argument about racism every day of the week, A, because I was a racist, and B, I had facts on my side. So.
Fantastic. We won't try to win. Don't worry. Zoila says, thank you very much. These are necessary conversations. Also, good luck with your walk. And do you have a timeline on your social media? So if you are in a city where you're going to a city where somebody is, can they come and say, hey, or walk with you?
I'm working on that, because with the graduation at Cheney, everything was kind of disjointed because it was kind of out of route a little bit to get to. But now that I've this week, I'm using to determine, I can start to kind of gauge distances, and I'm going to put a map out and dates as I can do. but there's so much to figure out. This is so overwhelming.
It's a lot. And you just basically just started. I mean, you kind of had a plan, but you just did it, which I think sometimes we overthink things and we don't do it. But as you said, God will find a way to provide. You just have to start. So
I still can't believe I started it, to be honest, Doc. Like, I look back going, did I really just do this? Did I really take off on this adventure? Like, yeah, I get to see sunrises and sunsets. And I mean, I'm just bewildered by how lucky I am.
Wow. Wow.
My cup runneth over.
Wow. Well, and finally, you're going to California. Are you going to LA? Where are you going?
Dr. Charles Drew School of Medicine, the only HBCU medical school west of the Mississippi. Technically, it's not, because it was opened in 1966, not 64, but it's still considered. But I've had several guys I know that are Omegas. You know, the Qs have said they'll come out South Central with me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love to hear that. I'm putting out a challenge I'm a Delta. So Delta D9, let's support him. If you're D9, make sure that you're finding a way to support. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you were Greek, if you were D9, because I spent a couple of weeks ago, I spent a day with one of your probably more famous sorority sisters.
Yes, I saw that. I was so excited that you got to with Sora Mulholland.
Jordan, yeah, Miss Mulholland, yeah.
Yes. Yes, and for those of you who don't know, she was an instrumental and still is an instrumental part of the civil rights movement. If you've ever seen any of the photos where people were trying to integrate lunch counters, the young lady with her hair in a bun thrust up, that is her. And that, to me, is the way that you say you are an ally. She is in the trenches, and she also happens to be a graduate of Tougaloo College and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
I want to add one more thing, just to anecdote about how lucky I am. Valentine's Day this year, I went to Atlanta, Georgia. And by the way, a woman in Iraq reached out to me and said that my piano teacher would love to meet you. By the way, her daughter has 2 law degrees from Howard. But the woman in question was the 1953 Miss Alabama State, and she's 90 now. But I got to spend Valentine's Day with her, and she was the organ player for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, all during the planning of the civil rights movement, the bombing, all of that. She played the organ and piano in his church for fellowship before they had the meetings planning this. And I got to sit and have a conversation with her about all this. This blew my mind. Again, my cup runneth over.
Wow. The role of music in this that you're bringing forth, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, we need that book. Quick and in a hurry. We need a documentary, quick and in a hurry. We can't wait to see where you're going with this. And I'm loving all of the documentation that you're doing on social media. And of course, let me know how I can be of help in this journey. Not that I'm a great person at all, but I would love to be of help in this journey. And anything, if you want, I have a network. We will make sure that we put it up on the network. So let me know. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is George, or GW Sedberry Jr. He is walking across the U.S. from New York to California to raise awareness and some money for HBCUs. He has great goals in mind. And if you are interested in being of help, make sure that you visit his Cash App. This is his Cash App here. He's really doing this on his own, and hopefully some sponsors will get involved. If you're watching this and you want to sponsor, get in touch with him. Fantastic. George, I'm going to ask you to hang on really quickly as we end. I'll be there in just a moment. And folks, that is it. Thank you so much for coming for this special edition of MediaScope. It was absolutely amazing. I couldn't ask for a better guest, and I can't ask for better guests in you all watching. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to end the way we always do. I love you for watching. I bid you adieu. You guys, myself, and GW Sedberry Jr., we are going to exit stage left. I will see you, not Wednesday, because this is our Wednesday, but I'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.
Close the doors, walk across the corridor. We got something to show you. Media is our repertoire. Fed up with the same news, no channel to use. Cruise control mentalities. Here we offer you. We gon' show you how you play. The content it never stays, but positive.